Hello and welcome to Sunflower Philosophy Tarot. My name is Juliana, and today's reading is actually going to be a collective reading. So, usually, whether you're familiar with my channel or not, at least at the point of recording, I've really only done pick a card readings. But today I'm going to do just a general reading to see what comes up and see what we all need to hear right now. But I also kind of want it to be a fun conversational type of reading because I was inspired by thinking about all the times that my mom and I have just for fun gotten out our cards and just flipped one over and started a conversation with the cards, with the universe, with whatever, and just saw what came through, just like kind of talking about it, philosophizing, just for the fun of it. And usually we would come to some really powerful or significant conclusions or have a really productive, fun conversation without even having an agenda on where we wanted it to go or what answers we wanted to get. Sometimes we didn't even have answers that we wanted to get, but answers came along anyway to things we didn't even know we were asking about. So that's kind of the vibe I want to bring to today's reading. And in the interest of encouraging that kind of conversational spirit, I do want to encourage anyone who might be watching who has as I'm, just going through the reading and talking about my interpretations and talking about what's coming to me, if anyone out there also has things that come up that either springboard off of things that I said or are interpretations that are different, that are, that you found constructive or that you found came to you that really resonated with you while this reading is going on, please feel free to share them in the comments. I always would love to hear, your thoughts and how things resonate, but if you want to contribute to the conversation and, add things and have your own interesting interpretations out there as well, would love to hear that from you. But so with that being said, let's see. Let's check this lighting actually, because I've got a new setup today, guys, and I want to see if we don't want a little extra light happening here. Let's see, will that be helpful to us? Let's try it out. Let's see, because you know what? I'm all about experimenting and trying new things today. So let's see how this lighting goes. All right, so I'm going to start by using this tarot deck, my Mary L tarot deck, to get just like the conversation started. So I'm just going to ask, what topic do we want to talk about today? What does spirit, the universe, our higher selves, what wants to come through? Okay, so I got two cards. They're not on the screen yet because I have to do some covering up of things. I have more space now with this new setup, so I can actually put cards under these cards. Crazy concept. I love it. So to start off, we got the High Priestess and the Nine of Discs, which is also known as the Nine of Pentacles. So right off the bat, with the High Priestess, it talks about intuition, and the Nine of Pentacles typically to me talks about satisfaction with the physical world. Ooh, okay. Yeah, so so unlike the Nine of Cups. So the Nine of Cups to me is emotional satisfaction. I feel like the Nine of Pentacles is the physical manifestation of that emotional satisfaction. And so since the Nine of Cups also came to mind, and we have the High Priestess here, which is intuition, it's very internal. A priestess is someone who is very spiritual, works in the spirit realm, I'm thinking shamanism, I'm thinking, tribes that there are some tribes around the world that exist today, I'm sure, that have, priestesses and priests and shamans and such. But, even more societies had that kind of thing in the past. And these were people who would frequently journey into the spirit realm. They were very wise. They were the counselors of their people, their tribes. And they're usually depicted, at least in our stories, if not embodied by people in our actual lives, as people who are relatively content with, or completely content with their situation, who they are, what they have, whether they have a lot or they don't have a lot. And that, I believe, is the main element of living that's being brought to our attention here. With the Nine of Pentacles, I mean, you're looking around at what you've cultivated for yourself, what you've created in your physical realm, and being completely and utterly satisfied with it, feeling complete with your physical world as well as your spiritual world. Okay. So this brings to mind for me a lot of things, but it makes me think about how a lot of times we are very focused on bringing about this feeling of satisfaction that we want to experience into our lives through physical means, whereas, and a lot of people are aware of this by now, because I feel like there are a lot of teachings out there that encourage this mentality, but there's the idea that you experience the satisfaction first internally, and then you also see that reflected back to you in your reality as a result of that first internal experience. You know what I mean? And I do feel like the High Priestess showed up on top of the Nine of Pentacles, so I actually felt like I wanted to reverse the order that I put them down in. Because it's almost like this priestess sort of nature is revealed first within you, and then it's revealed for second outside of you. At the same time, paradoxically, it's also the ability to recognize what you have in your world around you that already brings you satisfaction, and also like training yourself to experience satisfaction and happiness in whatever state that you are in currently. So it's like the, you know, the Ouroboros, which there's an Ouroboros on the back of the cards in this deck, the snake eating its own tail kind of thing, of like what came first. Sorry if the table is shaking, I was just checking the camera. Like what comes first, you know? The stuff outside of us that brings us satisfaction, or the sense of satisfaction, or our ability to experience satisfaction in our lives that then allows us to look around us and be satisfied and feel happy and feel content, right? Like, and I think it's both. It's both, but this is really emphasizing your ability to work that muscle of looking for things that you're grateful for. In other words, a gratitude practice. That might be a better way to put it for a lot of people. Having a gratitude practice works the muscle of our emotional and mental muscle of gratitude, of looking around us and saying, you know what? This is great. I love, you know, my sister. I really appreciate the house that I live in, or I really appreciate the bird that I just saw, you know? I really appreciate the smell of grass. I feel, you know, I'm feeling right now, like maybe you're just like breathing and you're like, I'm really enjoying the sensation of breathing right now, right? And noticing those things, and even if you don't like have the emotion of deep gratitude or satisfaction automatically, like it's almost like setting the intention to move in that direction. Like if you want to do a meditation on gratitude, for example, you might not start the meditation feeling particularly grateful. And you might not even develop that feeling that strongly throughout it. But if you keep coming back to that practice, eventually you'll feel something, right? And also, eventually there'll be something in your life that comes along that you feel a strong sense of gratitude for. And if you allow that feeling to grow and you're present with it and you cultivate it, then it becomes something that you are more and more inclined to feel on a regular basis, because it's just simply working that emotional and mental muscle, training your brain and heart to think about and to feel grateful and to think about things in a positive way, in a way that feels more aligned with you. I don't even want to say positive, because it's really like a way that feels aligned with you. There's a feeling of rightness that's your intuition. You know, the High Priestess within you, the part of you that feels when something just feels right. And that doesn't always have to be completely associated with positive emotions all the time. it can just be the sense of rightness, a non-resistance, if you will. And that allows for more comfort, even through like emotions that might sometimes be known to bring about more resistance. Like you can still feel angry, but not resistant to that anger. And you can still feel sad and not resistant to that sadness. And it's going to be a less uncomfortable experience than sadness that comes along with resistance. But you can feel resistance to happiness as well. You can feel resistance to joy. You can feel resistance to gratitude. You can feel resistance to all these things that can make the emotion feel uncomfortable to experience. So an example that comes to mind in my experience is that I often, not as much, not at like I've gone through a major internal change, which may or may not be externally apparent to the people in my life, but it's very apparent to me experiencing my life. From one of just being constantly in a state of like anxiety all the time to being a much more present, calm person who still has my moments of navigating things, but I think about the sensations I experience in my body differently. I think about the experiences that I have in my life differently than I used to. But one of the things that I realized along my journey is that I had this habit that was at one time subconscious, unconscious, I just wasn't aware of it, and then became conscious of whenever there was something coming up, like something that I might look forward to even, something that could be exciting in my life. Often it would be tinged with this feeling of fear, anxiety, and often I got to the point where I wasn't really, it didn't even really feel like I ever experienced excitement about things or like anticipation in a positive way or just like joy over anything that I was experiencing, because it just automatically shifted to fear. And there might have been something there about the intensity of the emotion I was experiencing that I was afraid to experience, which was why I experienced it with fear. But there's also the mental habits of like, oh, well, if I get too excited about this thing, then it might not live up to my standards and it will disappoint me, which also highlights the fact that maybe there are certain expectations I have for something that I'm really attached to. And so when those expectations aren't met, even though there might be other great things about the experience that might even be better than what I imagined if I had my expectations just like wide open, or if I just open my mind to all the possibilities, I can't see that, right? Because I'm just too attached to those expectations. So, that creates disappointment, and then there's a fear of disappointment, and then, anytime I feel anticipatory about something, or anytime I feel like, oh, there's something I could be looking forward to, or something that I could even just, I think about it and I'm like, oh yeah, that'll be a nice time when that happens. Like I'm going on a trip, that should be fun, and not get in my head about it, rather than like what I actually ended up doing a lot of the times, which was being like, oh, I have a trip coming up, which I want to enjoy, but actually it's just kind of like terrifying to me. I'm just thinking about all the potential things that could go wrong. I'm thinking about how I'm probably just going to not enjoy it because I got into the habit of feeling like I wasn't capable of enjoying things anymore, right? It was like a whole tangled mess of like mental thought, like habits around that kind of heightened emotional experience that made the experience no less heightened. Like it was still quite heightened, but it was heightened in a way that was fear, was projecting bad things into the future, right? That didn't happen, or things that incurred fear in me. And as I learned to recognize this, and as I got to a place where I was like, I really know that some way that I'm thinking and experiencing emotion and experiencing the world is not working, now I have to figure out how to reframe this experience I'm having to be one that's more positive. And I did that on different levels, like ways that some were more conscious, and some were just more like I just moved in that direction automatically. It was a layered process. It took time, and I didn't always understand what I was doing, but what I was really doing was doing practices like moving towards more mindfulness, moving towards creating mental patterns that were new and more in a positive direction, reframing my perspective in my mind, noticing the perspectives that I had to begin with that were causing or feeding this sort of fearful feeling, and then flipping that. And also the realization and recognition that if you're feeling like really anxious and fearful about something, the way that your body expresses that, it's like the same chemical reactions as joy but just like with a different story around it, right? So your body is getting excited. Your body is excited about the thing that's coming up, like the vacation that you're having. It's excited about it, but you only know how to experience the excitement as fear, so that's how it's coming out. But you can also just choose to flip that, right? And sometimes you can do that in an instant, and sometimes it's just a matter of recognizing it, being present with it, and slowly chipping away at what you've established so that you can then rebuild something on that foundation that is more positive, that's more aligned with what you want to feel. And it's always your choice. So I guess what we're really talking about here is learning how to bring how to work with your inner world. Yes, your inner world with this High Priestess here. How to work with your inner world to creating a beautiful inner world creates a beautiful outer world. And that's, okay, yeah, I'm getting more stuff now too. It's like when you attune yourself to the feeling of beauty, the feeling of love, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of abundance and whatnot within yourself, you open up to those things showing themselves in your everyday life to you more obviously. It's not that these things weren't already around you, they always were. Like, wonderful experiences, beautiful experiences always were. But it's a matter of us being able to open up to them. And I feel one way that is that's possible is through imagination, right? Using your imagination to imagine beautiful things, to imagine lovely things, to imagine wonderful things. But often our imagination can go in many different directions. We can imagine catastrophic things. It's really just a matter of like, what are we imagining? What feeling is happening when we imagine that thing? And is there anything I want to change? Like, do I want to let go of the imagining? Do I want to let go of the thoughts and the images? And sit with the emotion that's happening inside me, whether it's a bad one or a good one. Sit with that emotion, and not call it bad or good, because that's the judgment. That's like a thing that can make us even more resistant to our emotions. If we label something as bad, we don't want to be associated with it, and then we shove it away. And what resists persists, right? What we resist persists. So if we're resisting our bad, quote unquote, bad emotion, then it's going to keep trying to come up. It wants to be seen. It wants you to just be like, yeah, I see you, I hear you, you're okay. Sometimes maybe it's trying to tell you something, but sometimes maybe you just need to let it be there, right? And when you stop resisting it, then it's going to dissipate a lot faster. And it's not a matter of trying. It's like the opposite of trying. It's like falling asleep, right? You can't really try to fall asleep. It's like it's the act of letting go, the act of allowing sleep to come to you that helps you fall asleep. So it's like that same process in allowing emotions to dissipate and allowing resistance to dissipate is just letting it flow, letting it happen. And the more that we can do this within ourselves, the more we'll find that everything outside of us also flows with us, flows a lot easier. And going back to what I said about the inner world, if you're, imagining things that could happen, whether good or bad, a lot of the time, first of all, you can, when you're imagining things, recognize that it's just like lucid dreaming. But if you're imagining things, like, you're even more in the driver's seat in your conscious mind. So if you can imagine things consciously and mindfully, like visualization, if you already have a visualization practice, you probably already know this, but if you can imagine things consciously, where you're like, oh, I'm going to sit down and have like a little fantasy right now, right? Then you can recognize that you're the one who's in control of what you put there. So if there's things that keep coming into your fantasy that you don't feel like you're fully in control of, well, you are, but it might be a subconscious thing that your conscious mind hasn't recognized or fully acknowledged yet, that might need to be acknowledged in order to be removed from your fantasy and allow your fantasy to flow more easily. And it's like that kind of same thing that applies in your fantasy mind, in your imagination world, applies to like the world around you, because like they're both the same thing, but like one manifests differently than the other. Ooh, interesting. I mean, like, that all of that aligns with things that I've understood before, but I've never really heard it put that exact way. I hope for those of you watching at home, this you're picking up what I'm putting down, and this is flowing for you as well, because once I get going, I just kind of go. And the things that I'm saying make sense to me, but sometimes I'm just really in it, and I don't always know if I'm fully explaining everything, you know? Yeah. So a practice that's coming to mind for me with this is imagining, it's like kind of what I've been learning in my exploration of druidry, is like kind of you create your own sacred grove within your mind. And it's like a meditation that you can do, which can open you up to more intuitive spiritual experiences within your own self. But I feel like you can do this with, you can call it a sacred grove, you can call it a sacred space. You can just explore your inner world, just like close your eyes and like breathe and get yourself into a calm state and see like what images come to mind. See, maybe start by imagining yourself in a place that helps you feel safe. And it might take some time for you to get there. You can pay attention to the process, right? So if you are imagining yourself in a place that feels safe, what comes first, the feeling of safety or certain images, certain people, certain words? Can you access that feeling of safety easily? Is there some resistance there? And you can explore that just with curiosity, not with any pressure, and work on both consciously constructing what you're seeing in your imagination. And if you're not someone who sees things in your imagination visually, however you experience that, you can just think it, right? Think the thought, like whatever thought comes to mind, like, okay, in my peaceful space, I'm outside and there's grass, whatever. If you're seeing things, if you're not seeing things, it doesn't matter. It's all imagination. And just follow that and be curious about it and practice that curiosity and practice. And this is especially for those of you who don't do these kinds of practices regularly and like really don't really know what's going on in your inner world, because some of us spend more time on that than others, right? And it depends on like how much time we have and just how much interest we've ever had in that. But especially if you're someone who really wants to shift your perspective on life and also maybe shift some things that are happening in your life, if you want to manifest, shall we say, or just create your world more consciously, and just make more conscious choices and feel better in general in your life, this is one of the ways that you can possibly do that, is just by creating your inner world, but also noticing what might already be in there without you even realizing it. And then going through that process of realizing that if you're consciously aware of it, then you can just decide. So you can say, okay, like I'm in, a room in my mind right now. What's in this room? Okay, there's a vase. There's flowers in the vase. What kind of flowers? Interesting. There's irises in that vase. Ooh, I really like the color purple. There's also a clock next to the vase. It's on a table. What does the table look like? What does the clock look like? What time is on the clock? Is it noon? Is it, 1 a.m.? Is it 5:30 p.m.? What does the clock look like? Maybe the clock's broken. Or maybe it's ticking and you can hear that ticking. Can you hear any sounds? Are there any other sounds in the room? Just like going through that process, noticing what symbols might be appearing to you and noticing what emotions might be attached to the experience overall, certain specific things you come across within there. Just like you can do with dreaming. It's like, basically I'm just saying like daydream, like lucid dream, but like awake. And do it consciously, or if you catch yourself doing it and you're not doing it consciously, continue the dream consciously, right? And see, it's like you're working with the same things that you're working with in real life, quote unquote, in your external world, right? You're both noticing things that seemingly crop up without your awareness, and you're like, oh, okay, is that something that feels good? Is that something that doesn't feel good? Is that something that I can use? Is that something that means something to me? And you're, taking that information and doing something with it. And then you're also consciously saying, well, okay, I want this clock to be blue, so I'm going to make it blue, or I want to bring in an animal to this space. Okay, you bring in an animal, but is it, do you have a specific animal that you bring in? Is it one that, in real life, one that just a general kind of animal that you really like? Or does a different animal show up and you're like, oh, I didn't expect this. But then you're curious about it, and then you engage with that animal and you learn like maybe this is what you actually really wanted in your inner space or not. It's like the same thing as like manifesting in your physical reality. So if anyone here is like into that process, a lot of these things will probably resonate or sound familiar, at least, I would imagine. Yeah, this could be a really cool exercise for some people here. Yeah. It's just, it's an interesting thing for me to be doing right now, because, you know, I'm just going on the fly. I'm just letting things come to me, and I've never actually like sat down and done this process myself. But I do daydream all the time. Like, I have a very rich inner world, and I have done meditations that specifically guide me through it, but I haven't really sat down and thought of it exactly in this way, as like conscious daydreaming is like the same thing as lucid dreaming. It's like the same thing as learning that you actually do have a say in your reality, and that you do create it, basically, and you have power to create it, and you also work with the aspects of reality that come in that you didn't consciously create or you didn't consciously expect, and you can use those as tools to prune and to also say, oh, I didn't even know I wanted that, but I actually did, you know? Oh, that's even better than what I would have thought of consciously. And you can do that in your mind, in your inner world, in your imagination, in your spirit realm, even if that's, you know, how you experience it, and like work that muscle so that you can also apply it to the rest of your life, right? Interesting. Okay, so I got a lot from those two cards. I'm gonna get some tarot cards to see if there's anything we want to, like, anything else we want to say about this topic that I haven't covered yet. So let's see, can we clarify any of this? Is there anything else that you want to specify in terms of this conversation that we're having? Okay, so we have Page of Pentacles, Ace of Pentacles, the Hanged Man, and I do feel like I want to get one more card. So we'll get one more card. Okay, I hope the glare isn't too much. I see that there's a bit of a glare because I do have the ring light on. But if that's not working, you know, we'll keep that out of future readings. Now, I have the Ten of Pentacles on the bottom of this deck, and I do feel called to put that right over here. So I'm going to put that right over here. So, Page of Pentacles, Ace of Pentacles, Hanged Man, Seven of Cups. Well, with the Page and the Ace of Pentacles, this is definitely about manifesting. Like, this is definitely about, and for those of you who aren't like in with the manifesting lingo, or you just kind of have heard it and it's not really like your vibe of how you imagine it, like, manifesting it's literally just creating your life how you want it to be consciously. And yet, when I say how you want it to be, it's also being aware of the fact that along the journey of creating your life consciously, you might become aware of the fact that you want things that are different than what you originally thought you wanted. So it's part of the manifestation journey is also a journey of it's all just about getting closer to yourself and getting closer to an authentic expression of yourself in your world, right? Like, living in a world that feels right to you, feels closer to who you are, and creating that reality for yourself, which, again, along the way might mean learning that some of the things that you thought you wanted, you actually want something different. Or some of the things that you wanted in the moment will change over time, and that's just a normal part of the process. And yes, it is just life, but it's living life from a perspective that is more empowered than just assuming that life happens to you and there's nothing you can do about it and there's no way to respond differently to get a different result, to create it the way that you want it to be, and to create something that feels good to you, feels right to you, feels fun and exciting, right? That's what it is. And so with the Page of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles here, yes, it's okay. I feel like the Page of Pentacles is like you with your pentacle, right? Your thing that you want to manifest. And the Ace of Pentacles is like the universe. It's like spirit. It's like the non-physical part of you and everything and everyone that also has this pentacle, right? And it's like what you want wants you, right? So it's like the non-physical thing and the thing that you want are aligned, but it's also making sure that those things are aligned by basically, excavating your inner world and learning what's in there and learning what's been put there maybe by someone else, by people who tell you, okay, so you should want this, right? So it's like, for example, you grow up, you're a kid, you're raised by, your parents who, they're like, okay, yeah, in order to have a happy life, you have to be married. You have to stay married to one person for your whole life. You have to own a house. You have to get a good 9-to-5 job. And you have to have 2 kids. And you have to have a good retirement stashed up so that then you retire at the age of 65. And then you retire and then you golf and then you die, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with that vision of life, by the way. But I'm saying that this is like a very specific vision that perhaps like the theoretical child we're talking about grows up in, where this is what their parents believe, this is what their parents set them up for, this is what their parents tell them they need to do to have a happy life. And maybe they have this spoken or unspoken feeling that this is the only life that's happy, right? And the only life that's satisfying that they could possibly have. But maybe for this child, as they grow and learn and become their own person, they start to feel like something's off, something's just not really working for them. They're not feeling good about their life. They're following the path that their parents set out for them, but they're just not feeling right. And so there are probably a whole bunch of other factors in terms of like, what's their relationship with their parents like? What's their relationship with society like? What does their society tell them? Is what their parents are telling them is right aligned with what society is telling them? Are they polar opposites? Which one is the right path? Or are there many paths that are also just like not, just what their parents are telling them, not just what society is telling them, not just what this one group tells them, not just what this other group tells them. It can be overwhelming, and it's something that takes time sometimes to weed through and say, okay, well, something's not feeling right. I'm on this path. I'm doing these things. I went to school. I went to college. I went for something that's going to get me this specific kind of job that will allow me to get this house, marry this person, stay with this person forever, have this many kids, and retire by this age. And it's like, something's not working. Maybe there's something in the universe, in their subconscious, that's not letting them have certain of these things happen because it's not what they really want. So that's discouraging and frustrating for them, because they're like, well, I'm trying to have this life and it's just not working. I'm not meeting the right person. I'm not, I keep losing jobs, or I'm not finding the right job, Maybe there's an element of that happening. Maybe there's an element of, I'm doing the thing, but I'm just not happy. There's something missing, Maybe there's something that they're passionate about that they put aside to live this life, and they were told that they couldn't make anything out of their passion, but that's where they really want to go, right? Or maybe they don't even know why. Maybe there's just a feeling of like, something's wrong, something's missing, something's not right, but they can't even put their finger on it, right? And so it's not that the plan that was laid out for them by their parents is inherently wrong or bad, but it's that it's not 100% aligned with them. So then you go in and you do the inner work and you say, okay, what is going on in here? Like, what's not working for me and what is? And in some cases we find, okay, I actually maybe do want this thing that my parents said that would lead me to a happy life, but not from that perspective. I want this thing because it feels right for me, but I also noticed that my parents said that they were happy, but they really weren't. So I thought that this was actually a bad thing to want, and I needed to do something different from them to be happy. But it's not actually that. It's just that they had their own baggage, their own issues that were going unaddressed, and I actually do want this thing. I want this family. I just thought that there wasn't a way I could have that and be happy because I thought my parents weren't happy, even though they said that they were. Or it could be another thing of like, actually, I want to live, in a van and travel the world and, do all these kinds of things. And I don't want to have a family right now. Maybe one day, maybe never, but that's just not calling to me, right? But because they were told that the only way to be happy is to settle down and have a family, they feel like that's wrong. They feel like that's bad. And they feel like that's actually going to be the wrong choice for them to make. But something in them really wants to make that choice. And so, yeah, just the significance of going in and pruning your inner world and figuring out what's there and what's there that feels like it's right and what's there that just feels like it was put by someone else, by society, by an idea outside of you that doesn't resonate, and maybe resonated at one time but doesn't anymore. And just being aware of that, being able to go in and weed that out and see what you're left with, see what things stay and see what things go, and see where maybe something stays but your perspective around it changes. Maybe something goes but your perspective around it also changes, It's like, it can be kind of a fun process, but it's something that a lot of people are afraid to do because a lot of the things that we suppress and that we don't want to look at or don't want to acknowledge or resist are the things that we perceive as being bad feelings, feelings of sadness, feelings of anger, feelings of anxiety and depression and things like that. And anxiety and depression are kind of like suppressed feelings, like that. Those are like the long-term extended experiences of emotions and things in us being suppressed. And sometimes, again, it's also suppressed happiness and suppressed excitement as well. And yeah, so it's the idea of, with this Hanged Man, a perspective shift is sometimes needed in order to realize what you truly want, and also in order to realize that what you truly want also does truly want you, Anything that's meant to be for you is something that you truly want. And it's just learning the difference between things that you think you want and things that you know you want. And you are, things that you are, really, things that you are, not even just know you want, but like things that are just part of you, right? And that once you let go of resistance to those things, become part of you easily and naturally. And with the Seven of Cups here, I feel this, first of all, this card can be about like dreaming, daydreaming, choices, options. It can be about feeling overwhelmed. It can be about having like maybe too many options or choices. So I'm getting two meanings from this. One is the acknowledgement of how sometimes it can feel overwhelming to open up your perspective to all the possibilities that exist once you stop limiting yourself to just one path, right? So it's acknowledging that can be an overwhelming experience, because then you feel like, well, how do I even know what I want? How do I even know what the right path is to take? Because sometimes you go through a period of confusion where you don't know because what you thought you knew wasn't really true or just wasn't true for you anymore, and then you don't really have like a place to land yet. So it's acknowledging that can be an ungrounding experience. It can be a little even scary at times, although it doesn't have to be, but it might be, especially when you're not used to going through times of uncertainty, or you've been avoiding uncertainty for a long time because, it's an uncomfortable experience. Now, the more that you get down with uncertainty, the more you work that muscle of building comfort within it and allowing things to unfold, because coming back to this Page of Pentacles and Ace of Pentacles, it's like the universe will always come along to support you, to give you what you need. It's just a matter of you being present, being in touch with yourself enough to take that and to move forward. And sometimes, again, that takes a time of pause. There's a time of pause, of reflection, and of perspective shift that will lead you to this Ten of Pentacles, right? Because this Ten of Pentacles is like the wealth of generations, This is the kind of thing that you can pass on to your family, to your kids. I really want to look at what's under this. Under this Ten of Pentacles. I just got... Oh, okay. So with this Nine of Wands that's under the Ten of Pentacles here, sometimes we might have a little moment where sometimes when we break through to a new way of being, a new level of like satisfaction or success internally and externally in our lives, sometimes we look back and we're kind of like, why the hell wasn't I doing this the entire time? Like, why did it take me so goddamn long to get here? Why didn't I know this before? Why didn't I understand this before? Why was it so hard for me to get here, right? We could be a little judgy with our past selves. And that could even create a little resistance to enjoying our current success, right? That habit of looking back, that habit of being like, what the, why did this take so long? But this here is an encouragement to engage with the process more playfully. So to really get down with the idea of life almost as a game where you're learning the rules and you're also learning how to execute them. It's a practice, it's a growth exercise, and it can be fun. Like that exercise I talked about with using your imagination, that can be a really fun process. And it might be uncomfortable for especially for those of you who aren't as comfortable in your imaginative space. But again, it's just about building that muscle. It's just like exercising, just like anything. There might be some more resistance at first, but once you build it up, once you just do it more consistently every single day, it becomes easy. And you might be tempted to look back at the process and be like, why was that so hard for me to begin with? But if you can stay present, if you can stay present and forward thinking and just appreciative, if you've built up that muscle of gratitude that we talked about in the beginning, you will not miss your abundance when it comes to you. Because that's the other thing, right? You might be bringing in a whole bunch of stuff in your life, but if you are unwilling to embrace it, to be grateful for it, if you haven't practiced being satisfied and just feeling good and just accepting that it's cool and good to feel good and to appreciate what you have and to appreciate your success and to look for your success and to look for the beauty in the world and to look for the good in other people, whatever you're manifesting, because it can be for people in the world. So like looking around and seeing a more peaceful world, not because all wars are gone or all conflict is gone, but because you are witnessing more of the peace in other people and more of the people who are working towards peace, who are even in conflicts striving for peace or have a peaceful aura, a presence, a mentality towards peace. You'll open up and you'll see more of that and you'll experience more of that. And again, that's just bringing more of that into the rest of the world, so it's helpful for everyone around you, no matter what else is going on. But it's also bringing that more into your world so that you're more accepting of it when it comes to you, so that when you have a moment of peace for yourself, where you're just like, sitting and watching a sunset, you're really there and you're believing it and you're like, yes, this is a peaceful moment and I feel it and I'm here and I embrace it. And I believe that this can exist. Because sometimes we're in a moment and we just don't believe that it can exist. So we're just like, yeah, this is a great sunset. I wish I could enjoy it, Which, if you have found yourself there in that mind space recently, no judgment. It's not a bad thing. Everything is just pointing you towards more of what's actually you. So whenever you experience that feeling of like, this isn't quite what I want to feel, it's pointing you towards what you do want to feel. And so it's, again, learning to work with that process to become the observer of those emotions, those experiences, and take them as an opportunity, take them as a good sign even. Shift your perspective on like experiences that you'd rather not be having and be like, this is a good sign. This is moving me towards more of what I want to be. Oh my God. Also, there's a squirrel. I'm looking out the window. It's like running up the stairs of the deck right in front of me with an acorn in his mouth. And sometimes when the squirrels, when they get on our deck, they like to play on the barbecue equipment. So I hope that's not what he's going up there to do right now. Oh, he's going back down. Yeah, anyway, it's really funny. I love squirrels. Acorns, though, they do remind me of pentacles. Like, because the idea of pentacles is like being in the physical world. It reminds me of seeds. Like the Ace of Pentacles, it reminds me of planting a seed that you are nurturing so that it will grow. So there's a lot of patience in that, but it's also like the whole process of it can be beautiful and wonderful if like you plant an actual seed and then you're like, you keep coming back to the seed to just be like, maybe talk to it, maybe give it some encouragement, just water it when you need to water it, just appreciate it, just be like, ooh, like, I love you, little seed, just as you are right now, and I'll love you just as much when you're, a big plant, and just being really in tune with what's going on with that seed and what it needs to feed it, and then also letting it just do its own thing in the background while you go do other things. And that's really just the process of, like, creating your life. Wow, okay. Well, that was interesting. I'm going to close it out with a quote card or two, because I feel like we got a lot here. This is interesting because I've never really been too involved in like manifestation specific communities, although as I said, manifesting it's literally just like living your life, but like in an empowered way where you just feel like you have the ability to create it, right? And you're moving towards creating a life that's the most authentic to you. Like that's really what it's about. So like you can be doing that and call it manifesting, and you can be doing that and call it magic, and you can be doing that and not call it anything. Just call it living, right? But I feel like a lot of the messages that came up today are centered around manifestation and centered around like manifesting for the long term. Like I feel like with this card and this being a collective message with this 10 of Pentacles here, this generational wealth, abundance that we are collectively manifesting, because whether you are consciously doing it or not, you like always are manifesting. Like you're always creating something for yourself, whether it be an emotion, an experience, a relationship, money, all of that you're always creating. So what we're creating here as a collective, it's like a metaphorical and literal abundance for future generations, for the whole world, right? Like our generations of the future at large. So when you're getting more in touch with yourself, when you're creating the world that you really want to see, when you are becoming more and more of your true and authentic self and weeding out anything that just doesn't align with that and just becoming who you are, you're also creating an environment where your children, where other people's children, where the future generations are free to do that as well, where you can teach them and help them to do that, but also they are free to be themselves because you know the value of you being your true authentic self and you are truly in touch with that. And that's like the bigger picture of what doing your like self-work, which again doesn't have to be scary or arduous, but it's okay if at times it is. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong if at times you have a hard time with it. But it also can be a really fun process, because that's another thing that you can manifest for yourself, is that learning and growing can be fun. You can create that for yourself. You can create that emotion for yourself. You can train yourself in that direction. It just takes persistence. It takes time sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't even have to take that long, Depends on where you're at. And as always, there's so many different tools that you can use. I'm gonna take that. I'll get to the quotes in a minute, but there's so many different tools you can use, and like some of the ones that I've used have involved, just your run-of-the-mill taking care of yourself, making sure that you're in tune with your body and like, okay, what foods feel good to eat? What exercises feel good to do? What practices feel good to do? How do I organize my space? How do I keep my space clean? And some of it has been stuff more along the lines of like hypnosis, which I do. My mom and I both do. We have a business, so we have a link in the description if you want to check that out, for tarot, hypnosis, and human design. So those are things I use. I use hypnosis. Energy healing is something I'm learning more about and getting more into. That has actually been really successful for me, because my experience has been one of like really being in tune with energies and emotions and things that are flowing through me that often in the past have gotten blocked up, and understanding these things as energy and understanding these practices of energy healing as things that legitimately like have an impact, that we're all energy and that's always flowing through us all times, that like has a material impact on like how I feel, has been monumentally useful in helping me with just how I see and experience my emotions and how I understand myself and how I empower myself to feel better and like do what I want to do without fear, right? And to process those kinds of things as well when they come up. And those are things that have helped me. Yoga, all these kinds of things. Like these are all just tools. Tarot. These are all just tools that are helping us hone our intuition, hone our inner world, and help us point more in the direction of what feels right and what doesn't, which is why I always say with these readings that you're listening to this reading with your own intuition. You're taking the messages that come to you that feel true to you, and even using messages that, especially messages that might cause like a certain kind of emotion or heightened emotion in one way or another, using that as information as well to let you know, like, is there a belief that's causing a resistance in me that I want to address due to this message? What direction is that coming from? Is this something that I actually want, but I feel like I can't have? Is this something that doesn't resonate with me, that I don't want for my reality, but I feel like, I need to do that, or I should do that, but it's not really for me. You know what I mean? Like, all those different kinds of things are information for you. And the more in touch with yourself you get, the more you can just allow things to go by you that aren't for you, and then take the things that are for you just naturally, because you'll just know. And it'll feel right. So let's just do these quotes and then we'll close out. So I have this quote first of all, which says, "I'm unusual and I embrace it," from Anne with an E. I love that card. I'm unusual and I embrace it. So yeah, for a lot of us here, embracing our authenticity and our unusualness is a major part of the process. There could be or have been a lot of resistance to our quote unquote unusualness in the past, because we have felt like, just like any child who wants to make sure that they stay in their parents' good side, or that they feel like they're beholden to their parents, whether their parents are conscious of this or not. Like, a lot of people have fraught relationships with their parents who were not like abusive, or who were not outwardly trying to hurt them, but still, are their own people and aren't always attuned to exactly, who their child is or what their child needs to hear. Like, things happen. Like, it's not, always fraught because of malicious intent. But still, going through those things and understanding those things can help us understand more of who we are truly and what we're not, in terms of, like, why did this thing that my parent told me when I was young really resonate with me? Why did this thing that my parent told me when I was young really not resonate with me, really cause me a lot of pain, And it could just be with society or kids in your class or anything, like all those things, just removing those beliefs about yourself that have been instilled in you by others that just don't feel like you anymore, just frees you up. Just embrace who you truly are, and to let go of resistance to who you truly are. Because once you do that, you look back and you're like, why the hell did I let that get to me in the first place? Sometimes it's even about things that you thought you'd hold on to forever, or that felt so huge and monumental for you for a long time, that you might not even have been in the mindset for the longest time to see how these things could just not have a hold over you anymore. But when they don't have a hold over you anymore, it's like, oh, a whole weight is lifted, and you could see your world in not even just a whole different way, but like a more holistic way. So you can still remember the past, but you don't hold on to it, and you don't have as strong a feeling about it. And that's the benefits of this work. And speaking of feelings, we also have this card, which says, "I was having an emotion and I hate that." And this is from Exit Strategy by Martha Wells. Exit Strategy is one of the books in the Murderbot Diaries. I love those books because it's just so cute. I won't get into it, but if you feel called to check out any of these like shows or books, they might have more messages for you. But yeah, I was having an emotion and I hate that. That right there, that's resistance to feeling, which is something that we have all experienced and experience from moment to moment, from day to day. Sometimes we have more resistance to our emotions in one circumstance than others, but we really don't have to. Like, we don't have to go through life hating feeling. You just have to be open to releasing your resistance to emotion and let that process take its course. And that can be difficult to start, but it also it can be a very gentle process if you want it to be. But it can also be a more turbulent process that results in a just complete lightening of your heart, just lightening of your moods. And it's a process, as always. So everyone's an individual and everyone has their different strategies of addressing emotions and dealing with them. And it's really not about doing it right. It's about doing what feels right for you and acknowledging that you haven't been doing anything wrong in your life, but if you feel like something is wrong, or you feel like something is off, or there's something in your life that you want to change or experience differently, you are fully capable of changing that. You don't have to go through the same loops forever and ever and ever. And so if there is a loop you want to change, you are 100,000% capable of doing so. It just takes the intention and a step in that direction. And that step can look like anything, you know? And if you've got resources and people in your life who can help you take that step, gravitate towards those things. But trust that if you put that intention out there, the way to act on it will come to you. The universe will offer you what you want. Will offer you what you want. And sometimes if the universe offers you what you want and you run away from it, or you feel frightened by it, it might take some time for you to go within and have a perspective shift around that. Find what is causing you resistance to that thing and make your choice from a more settled, more deliberate, conscious state to move towards that thing or to move towards something else. And then we also have this card. And this says, you're gold when you're a kid, like green. When you're a kid, everything's new as dawn. It's just when you get used to everything that it's day. And this is from The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. And yeah, I feel like that's basically what we're talking about. I've got to make sure these stay covered. That's basically what we're talking about in terms of like when we were told as kids that the world is a certain way. Before we were told that the world is a certain way, we experienced the world as like this strange, wondrous place where, you know, we don't know that an apple is called an apple. We don't, or whatever it's called in a different language, you know, but like also an apple isn't an apple. It's just called that because we decided to call it that as a collective. If we decided to call it something different as a collective, then we can do so. But you also don't need the collective's permission to call the apple, you know, a rock or a made-up word. You know, you don't need the collective's permission to do that. You can just decide to do that. But, you know, thinking of this in terms of like our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about how life works, our beliefs about our health, our money, our relationships, those all come from the outside. Just sort through the ones that don't resonate with you at this time and get rid of them. And, you know, tap into that feeling of innocence, of being a kid and looking at an apple and not knowing what the hell it is, right? Because really, we can put all the labels we want on it, but what it is just so much more than the words that we use to describe it, just like everything is. And we have the power to give it a significance, a meaning. An apple can symbolize so many different things to so many different people. We get to choose the meaning that we put on that apple and the name that we put on it. And we get to choose the meaning that we give to our lives, the emotions we experience, the people we experience. We have the power to create that meaning. We don't need the collective permission to do that. And at the same time, we are part of a collective, and so we can engage with the collective in a way that, you know, it's interdependence, it's open-mindedness, it's allowing other people to bring us new ideas and understandings and to see if we resonate with those or if we don't, and live with one foot in our own world and one foot in the world that we belong to with everyone else. And create for yourself and then also create for the greater world. Even if you don't always know exactly what you want, exactly where you're going, and often it requires you to be open-minded about what you want and where you're going to get where you truly want, because you don't always know what you want until it's staring you right in the face. Okay, I think that's it. We're going to close things out here. I hope that was a really interesting conversation for you guys. I hope you got something out of it. As I said towards the beginning, please add your own interpretations, comments below. Let me know what resonated. Let me know if you have anything that came up for you because of what I said or just because of what's on the cards or different ideas that you have that were triggered by this. different perspectives, strategies that you use, stories that you have that are related to this. If you feel called to share any of those kinds of things, I would love to hear about them. We are losing our candles right now, so it is definitely time to go. So thank you for watching, listening, whatever you were doing while you had this on. And please subscribe, or definitely comment. I would love to hear your insights. And I hope you got something out of this. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're interested, please check out sunflowerphilosophy.com, link in the description, where we have our tarot, hypnosis, and human design services listed. So if you're interested, you can check out any of those. And I will see you in another reading again sometime very soon. Bye.